Have you ever trusted someone so completely that you never imagined they could become the center of a murder investigation? Maryland. Tuesday, 8:17 a.m. A quiet neighborhood wakes to another ordinary morning. Minutes later, one phone call begins unraveling a relationship everyone admired. 24 hours earlier, Madeline Brooks was laughing about wedding flowers. By lunchtime, detectives would be asking whether the man who loved her knew more than he admitted. Maryland, 8:17 a.m. Neighbors knew Madeline as the woman who remembered birthdays, helped struggling children at school, and never walked past someone without saying hello. Jeffrey Vaughn looked like the perfect partner. Calm, successful, patient. Friends often said they hoped to find a love like theirs. No one questioned what they saw, because from the outside, everything looked perfect. Main focus, Jeffrey Vaughn. That morning, Madeline failed to arrive at the elementary school where she had worked for years. She never missed work without calling. Her principal, Margaret Whitmore, tried reaching her. No answer. Her sister, Jocelyn Hart, called next. Still nothing. At first, it felt like a misunderstanding. Then the silence became impossible to explain. 2 hours later, Jeffrey told investigators he had kissed Madeline goodbye before leaving for work. He sounded calm. His timeline sounded simple. But one small detail in his account immediately caught Detective Gideon Ellis's attention. It wasn't enough to accuse anyone, but it was enough to make him stop taking notes and start asking different questions. But one detail didn't add up. By 11:42 a.m., the search for Madeline was no longer routine. Police arrived at the couple's Maryland home after repeated calls went unanswered. Jeffrey unlocked the front door. Everything looked untouched. Her purse was still inside. Her wedding planner sat open on the kitchen counter. But Madeline was there. She was found unresponsive inside the house. The woman who had been planning her wedding the day before would never walk down the aisle. Case changes, homicide investigation. Jocelyn collapsed when detectives confirmed the news. She couldn't understand how a future filled with hope had disappeared in a single morning. Detective Gideon Ellis slowly examined every room. There were no obvious signs of forced entry. No evidence that a stranger had broken in. If someone was responsible, Madeline most likely knew them. No forced entry. Then investigators learned something unexpected. Jeffrey's account of the morning didn't match one important piece of evidence already being reviewed. The case had just taken a very different direction. His timeline was being questioned. Evidence review. Detective Gideon Ellis compared Jeffrey's statement with the evidence collected that morning. The times didn't fully match. Not by hours. Just enough to raise questions. Jeffrey insisted he had left for work after saying goodbye to Madeline. But investigators couldn't confirm every minute of that timeline. Small gaps began to matter. Timeline under review. Jocelyn couldn't stop replaying their last conversation. Madeline had sounded excited about the wedding. Nothing in her voice suggested fear. Nothing suggested she believed she was in danger. That made the case even harder to understand. Then digital forensic analyst Adriana Flores uncovered something unexpected. A recent activity on one of the couple's shared accounts didn't fit Jeffrey's version of the morning. It wasn't proof of guilt. But it was enough for detectives to widen the investigation. One unanswered question now stood above every other. If Jeffrey's timeline wasn't completely accurate, what else had he kept to himself? Financial records reviewed. Detectives stopped looking only at the crime scene. They started looking at the couple's life. What they found changed the direction of the case. Jeffrey's finances showed unusual activity in the weeks before Madeline's death. Nothing illegal on its own. But the timing was impossible to ignore. At the same time, wedding planner Presley Donovan told investigators something she had never mentioned before. Madeline had suddenly postponed one important wedding payment. She simply said, "I need a little more time." That didn't sound like the happy future everyone believed she had. Then investigators discovered another surprise. Madeline had recently scheduled a private meeting that Jeffrey never mentioned. Who was she planning to see? And why had she kept it to herself? The secret meeting. One appointment. No arrival. Detectives traced Madeline's final schedule. The private meeting had been confirmed. But she never arrived. Who was she supposed to meet? And what was important enough to keep it from everyone she loved? Investigative journalist Addison Pierce uncovered another detail. The meeting wasn't connected to the wedding. It wasn't connected to her job. It involved a personal matter that had remained hidden. A new direction. As detectives dug deeper, they discovered someone had quietly benefited from a decision Madeline made just days before her death. It wasn't enough to make an arrest. But it gave investigators a reason to look beyond the perfect relationship everyone believed in. Then Detective Gideon Ellis received a report that changed everything. Someone had been telling two very different versions of the same story. Two stories. One wasn't true. Witness statements compared. Detective Gideon Ellis laid every statement side by side. One detail refused to fit. Jeffrey's version of the morning had changed. Not dramatically. Just enough for investigators to notice. The more he explained, the more new questions appeared. Jocelyn sat through the interviews in disbelief. She wasn't mourning only her sister anymore. She was watching the image of the perfect couple fall apart. The perfect story was cracking. Digital forensic analyst Adriana Flores confirmed that key digital records supported the investigators' concerns. The evidence wasn't based on opinions. It was based on timestamps. By the end of the week, detectives believed they finally understood what had happened inside that Maryland home. But proving it in court would require one final piece of evidence. The missing piece finally arrived. After weeks of reviewing digital records, financial documents, and witness statements, investigators reconstructed the final hours of Madeline's life. The evidence pointed in one direction. Jeffrey Vaughn was arrested and later charged in connection with Madeline's death. During the trial, prosecutors showed how small inconsistencies, overlooked records, and patient investigative work revealed a truth that appearances had hidden. The jury returned a guilty verdict. Justice served. Jocelyn stood outside the courthouse holding back tears. "No sentence will bring my sister back," she said. But today, the truth mattered. Madeline's family finally had answers. The smile everyone believed had hidden a heartbreaking reality, but it did not hide it forever. Remember the victim, not the mask. If this story reminded you that the truth can hide behind the most ordinary faces, subscribe to The Veil of Secret for more real, emotional true crime stories that uncover the facts behind the headlines.